members, we'll do a short book talk about one of the books in our collection. So this month, I'm the lucky one. So I'm Becky Garcia, I'm the manager of the store. And so I'm going to be doing a little book talk for you, just tell you a little bit about one of the other books that we have here in the store. So in honor of Halloween, tonight I'm talking about a collection of short stories we carry from Algernon Blackwood, one of the grandfathers of Gothic horror stories. This particular collection is from Stark House Press, a press that we carry quite a few things from, and they specialize in vintage fiction. These stories start out in this particular book in a normal setting, as most ghost stories do, and then descend into kind of nightmarish situations little by little. In The Empty House, one of the first stories, a man agrees to go with his aunt to visit a reportedly haunted house. Straight up, you know there's going to be an issue, and the house does not disappoint. His aunt undertakes it as a lark, but soon enough they find themselves in a situation where they both regret the decision. It reminded me of the first time, for some of you might remember this with me, that I watched the old version of Shirley Jackson's The Haunting of Hill House in black and white. The feeling that you get, the sound and feelings invoked in the book give you a shiver up the spine and a dread of what will come next. In The Listener, a man of very tight means rents 2 rooms in the center of London for a very affordable sum. Of course, he never questions why the rooms are so cheap, because the place is very rough and none too free of the mice that he hears running around at night. But then he begins to notice other noises and feels he is not alone. He is aware that someone seems to be listening to him and crawling about. Feral cats haunt his doorway, and one scratches him. As the wound becomes infected, you start to wonder how much is real and how much he imagines as he keeps hearing noises all around him. From another story, Smith, an episode in the lodging house, I'll read this one passage. The room was utterly empty. It was utterly empty, at least, to the eye. But to the nerves, and especially to the combination of sense perception, which is made up of all the senses acting together, and by no one in particular, there was a person standing there at my very elbow. I say person, for I can think of no appropriate word. If it was a human being, I can only affirm that I had the overwhelming conviction that it was not. That it was some form of life wholly unknown to me, but to its essence and its nature, a sensation of gigantic force and power came with it. And I remember vividly until this day my terror on realizing that I was close to an invisible being who could crush me as easily as I could crush a fly, and who could see my every movement while itself remaining invisible. One of the longer stories in the book is one of his most famous. It's called The Willows and centers around 2 intrepid travelers who are canoeing down the Danube. They've been warned to be careful of what route they take, as some tributaries are too shallow and some too treacherous to navigate. At one point, they find themselves in a situation that makes it difficult to go any farther that day. They stop for the night at a small, uninhabited, verdant island, ringed by willows so small they are more tall bushes rather than trees. And here, in this seemingly bucolic pastoral scene, they proceed to pass 2 days of increasingly terrifying splendor. In the December 2016 article from the New York Review of Books, which discussed works of Algernon Blackwood, that said, to many, including H.P. Lovecraft, The Willows is the finest story in the canon of supernatural fiction. Nearly any anthology of classic eerie fiction will include the novella. Nonetheless, it contains no ghosts, or slasher movie gruesomeness, or any clanking apparitions from which no traveler generally returns. Instead, Blackwood instills disquiet, then apprehension, through a series of increasingly inexplicable details. A glimpse of what seems to be an otter, something unnerving about the swaying of the trees, a peculiar gong-like humming, the appearance of funnel-like hollows in the sand. The story avoids explicitness, but instead tantalizes, draws us in, and frightens us with something not quite said. Born in 1869, Algernon Blackwood is a journalist and broadcast narrator and one of the most prolific writers of ghost stories in the history of the genre. Most of his work was published in the early to mid-1900s, and instead of what we consider horror today, most of his writing includes a spirit of suspense and awe. The Stark House collection includes a variety of stories using many different themes and settings. The setting might be expected, like a haunted house, or a student frantically studying for a major exam, a hiker visiting a small village who comes upon a benevolent stranger with an unexpected calling, or a young man with an unknown visitor who faces away from him and offers him a gift but won't say who it's from. In each case, Blackwood builds suspense and an eerie atmosphere that had me racing to finish the story. Each one was different from the last and left me looking over my shoulder with a delicious tremor of disquiet. So if you're in the mood for just a bit of scary this October, and your tastes run to something that makes you think and shiver rather than scream, cringe, and gag, I'd recommend sampling some of the great tales by this master of the old school supernatural, Algernon Blackwood. All right, so our first reading will be from A.K. Fagan, and this is her introduction. Born and raised in Austin, Texas, A.K. Fagan is a long-time aspiring author. Her first adventure fantasy novel, Worldwalker, book 1 of the Nakano series, debuted on December 19, 2016 with help of friends, family, and online fans. Fagan is a creative writing major and enjoys sushi, Indian food, and like any good American, hamburgers. She enjoys playing RPGs, reading, and watching anime. She also has a great interest in other cultures, especially Eastern. The fusion of Western and Eastern attitudes and ethics is a large factor in the Nakano series, blending Japanese and Chinese historical trends with the perspective of an average college student from the United States in the 21st century. Fagan has a fat Siamese cat, Nero, who is an aspiring model and is constantly disgruntled by everything. Please join me in welcoming A.K. She'll be sitting to read.
Yeah, that was a sprained ankle. Yeah, if possible. I mean, worst comes to worst, I just balance it in my lap. So I'd like to start off with a little bit of exposition because the excerpts I have chosen to read, they require a little bit of explanation about some things. So anyways, some key points that you will find out about. Pardon?
I'm so sorry to interrupt. Did you want the mic still?
Am I loud enough?
Can you hear me?
Okay, good. I'm a naturally loud person, what can I say? So there's a few things that I would like to explain beforehand. One of those is that there is a magical weapon that is introduced earlier in the story called the Goshenji that is like a on-the-go language translator. And then in this excerpt, we're in Hisagure, which is a fantastical land that will be explained in the prologue. And the Goshenji also transforms into a magical weapon, a scythe light, that is not necessarily on our protagonist's side. It does not exactly have her best interest at heart. So, there's a general consensus that when a book, movie, TV show, comic, graphic novel, or any sort of entertainment media is considered fiction, it's not real. The characters may have a basis on real people, alive or dead, or in the case of historical fiction, there might be scenarios and plot points that correspond with actual past events. Still though, the story is an unreality, a fantasy of sorts, even if it's not in the specific fantasy genre. There are people who like to live in these fantasies. Cosplaying, fan fiction, role-playing, fan art, and more are all a place where people who love these unrealities can gather and enjoy them together. Some even like the thought of actually living in these fantastical worlds, where superheroes fight supervillains, where children grow up fighting a despot and win, where small groups of rebels defeat an empire built on oppression, where gods walk on the earth and fall in love with humans. Basically, where the normal, mundane world that we know is a thing of the past and we can experience the true magic of living. Still though, no matter how some of these fans may feel, it remains a fact that these stories are not real and often have no basis in reality either. But what if I told you that for me, the one unreality I loved most was, in fact, a reality? It sounds good, doesn't it? The thought of leaving your worries behind to live with your favorite characters and defeat the big bad villain and live on forever as a hero or heroine. It sounds so cathartic, so freeing. You get to experience epic battles, heroic quests, a life where good trumps evil every time. Things always work out in the end, no matter the bumps along the way. It's always okay when you close the book, press the off button on the remote, stand up and leave the movie theater. It seems like a dream come true. It's really not. It's more of a horrible nightmare that you can't wake up from. You miss your family, your friends, and you're stuck knowing that you'll never see any of them ever again. You don't have the so-called plot armor, so you never know when you'll die, because the story doesn't need you, does it? And there's no author or director to protect you because you're important and things will fall apart without you. Customs are different. You don't know what the currency exchange rate, and you have no money anyways. In fact, you have nothing but the clothes on your back. And your favorite characters? Well, they don't know you, and it's terribly awkward to encounter someone you feel like you've known all your life, who couldn't pick you out from a crowd. And what happens when it turns out the characters you hated are actually the nicer ones you meet? The ones you've been told to hate by the author are actually kind of awesome. But you had no way to know that, because the author that you've idolized for so long, well, he's a bit of an asshole, and he's biased, and really, he doesn't know as much as you thought he did. So you're lost in this world. You don't speak the language that was so nicely translated for you into your native tongue. So you can't communicate with anyone, not even to ask for a drink of water. You have no idea where anything is, so you wander around in a daze because really, this isn't supposed to be real, and how are you supposed to need to memorize the fun little world map in the back of the book that's supposedly just there for reference? The plot doesn't need you or care about you. You don't know the difference. You don't know what's safe to eat and what isn't, and you have no friends, certainly no family. You don't have a single person who cares if you live or die. Well, at least in my case, I had a lot of people who wanted me dead. Not many rooting for me to live, though. You see, living in these fictional worlds isn't actually all that wonderful. If I could give any advice to any fan back in my world who went to a convention where one Thomas Winters was doing a meet and greet, I'd say stay the hell away. And if you're determined to go because he's your favorite author of all time, at the very least, don't ask about the mysterious gem that the odd-looking cosplayer at the stall doesn't want you to touch or buy. Another general rule of thumb in that situation is to not ask said Thomas Winters about the mysterious gem, and if you can have it. But if you're stupid enough to do all those things, and Winters decides to give it to you, then just don't. Don't do that, because you'll end up like me. And trust me, a bullet to the head is not really a great way to go. The next time I was conscious, the sun was high in the sky. I noticed that I was sprawled out on the bed of the cart and that all the crates were gone. Sitting up blearily, I found that Taya had set up a stall, possibly with the materials hidden beneath the crates, and was having a lot of luck selling her goods. There wasn't much produce left. "Hyoi," she called, smiling. She looked very tired now, and it was understandable. I wasn't sure how long she had been awake, but I knew she hadn't slept all night. However, there was no mistaking in the daytime that she was a beautiful woman. She had long dark hair and clear brown eyes, with very delicate and refined features. Her skin was lightly tanned with a few freckles on her cheekbones, and all in all, she was, in a single word, gorgeous. The fact that she had killed her husband made me expound on that. She was like a black widow, beautiful but deadly. "Hey, good morning," I said, stretching and standing. Taya looked at me strangely. "What's wrong?" I asked. And then I noticed it. I was speaking English again. As she hadn't said anything other than my name, I was pretty sure I had lost all ability to communicate with her. "Jitsu o kashitanda?" she demanded, sounding surprised and suspicious. I couldn't understand her. I didn't have a single clue what she was saying. Jisho shikuda, she demanded more loudly, but I couldn't speak. I was frozen in terror. What had happened? Why couldn't I understand her anymore? I could only stammer incoherently. I realized hysterically that it didn't matter what I said, she still wouldn't be able to understand me. Jitsuo jitsuka da inda, she cried, and people in the marketplace turned and looked at me warily. I hadn't expected this, but I didn't imagine running now. I could already see looks of recognition on some of their faces. Kazu deshite, one man said, pointing at me. Kazu Marina deshite, gojudo taishoku da kuraien to ao. The voices were getting louder now, and more people were pointing and glaring. I heard one person say, Judo tu sakayu, oe izu. I didn't know what they were saying, but when I saw two armed men in samurai-like armor come from around the corner, the exact armor that I had seen the guard wearing during Kuraien's future reign of terror, I knew I had to leave immediately, and the people crowding around the cart where I was were preventing me. Well, it was a good thing I had the Goshenji. I had only hoped it would choose to help me, because even though I figured we had an understanding, I wasn't sure. Please help me, I asked mentally before grasping the jewel. And then suddenly the words around me made sense. She's the girl who almost ruined Lord Kuraien's ceremony. That bitch. She fell from the sky. Help! Get the Saikuya on guard! So, apparently the reason I had been able to understand Taya the night before was because I had touched the Goshenji right before talking to her. The effects had apparently worn off while I slept. It would have been really nice to make that connection earlier, but there was nothing for it now. There wasn't going to be any reasoning with these people, much less the Saikuya on guard. They were probably already on the lookout for me, if for no other reason than being a nuisance at a very important person's coronation. I pulled the Goshenji out just as it began to heat up. I wanted to drop it, but I noticed that my burns healed once the transformation into the Senai was complete. I endured the pain as necessary, hoping that I would have time to escape before they tackled me. Unfortunately, I was woefully unprepared for the Senai's weight, and immediately almost lost my balance. One of the people who had apparently seen what the scythe could do jumped up on the cart and tackled me. Still trying to recover my footing, I fell hard. That wasn't the worst part. I fell backwards onto the Senai, which had positioned just right so that it speared me through the chest. I lied there, blinking in surprise. I felt no pain, even though I could feel hot wetness pouring onto my chest. The man lying on top of me jerked, gurgled, and then had glassy eyes and his expression slackened. He was dead. It had happened too fast, was too much of a shock to me. I just stayed still, heart pounding with blood wetting my hoodie and the shirt beneath. The man was heavy, stifling my attempts to breathe. For a moment, everything seemed to still. Then there was a collective gasp of horror from the crowd around me. A woman pushed her way forward to the front of the crowd and screamed. "What's going on here?" demanded one of the guards as the crowd parted for him. The woman cried, "That bitch killed my husband." It wasn't true at all, though. If they could see what I saw, they'd known I had fallen on the scythe, but it had phased through me as though I wasn't there, so the full length of the scythe piercing the front of the man who had tackled me. As far as the people around me were concerned, I had positioned the scythe in front of me so the man would be killed and not myself. Only Taya would know the truth, and she was the only one who had been behind me and would see the scythe's true position. Son of a bitch, I thought furiously. Why did you do that? I demanded of the Senai. I'm as good as dead now. Oh my God. I hadn't been expecting a response, however. We have a deal, an androgynous voice whispered in my head. You will not perish until our deal is fulfilled. I couldn't think about talking sides or apparent or mortality, as currently the dead man was being hoisted off me by one guard, and another seized me by the shoulders and yanked me up and out of the cart. I stumbled at the sudden pull of gravity, but the guard wouldn't let me fall. You're under arrest for murder, the guard told me roughly, twisting me around so that I faced the angry crowd. Someone threw an overripe vegetable that looked like a tomato at me, and it burst open on me as a water balloon would, except with a much fouler smell. 3 or 4 more came at me from different directions, but only 2 made contact. My eyes frantically searched for Taya behind the guard, and I met her glare. Please, I begged, please tell them I didn't kill him. It was an accident. I don't. Taya spat in my direction. Don't you dare even look at me, you filthy little bitch, after I was so kind to you. She trailed off. Then her expression went flat, and she turned around to rearrange the remaining fruits and vegetables meticulously, as though nothing had happened. At this, tears finally pricked my eyes. I couldn't argue with her, not on this. Even if Taya did substantiate me, there were at least 24 other people with directly conflicting eyewitness reports. Now, I didn't know much about how this law system in Hisaguri worked, but I was pretty sure I was about to find out a lot more than I ever wanted or needed. Then again, the guard who picked me up had seen that the scythe had been behind me. The clarity of the situation hit me. I was coming with them no matter what happened. If it wasn't for getting the Senai and its user out of the way, it was for interrupting the ceremony of the decade. 4 more guards arrived at the scene, and one of them picked up the Senai. The moment he lifted it up, and I was maliciously vindicated to see that he grunted and strained a little as he did. It immediately glowed hot, making him yell and drop it before it reverted to the Goshenji form. I fought tears as valiantly as I could as I watched the guard holding it, examine it closely before wrapping it in cloth and tucking it into his pocket. It was for either examination or loot, but either way, I would never see the Goshenji again, and in just a little while, I wouldn't be able to understand the language anymore. I wasn't going to be able to defend myself, not even with words. If I was ever inclined to think that immortality might be a good thing, it was no longer the case.
So you mentioned that you've been writing for a long time. Has it always been science fiction, or is it or fantasy, or is it something?
Actually, my specialization is horror.
Oh.
The fantasy, I've always wanted to write a fantasy novel, series, whatever. But my natural inclination as a writer is to write really dark stuff. So it's kind of a dark fantasy, but it doesn't really touch on the real stuff that I write, the stuff that I sell normally is horror.
Anybody else? Are you working on the next book in the series?
Yeah, we only have like 5,000 words, but it's coming along. It's coming along. I just have so many other projects. I mean, I have my hands in at least 5 or 6 different pies stories at once. So
That's great. Well, thank you so much.
thank you.